I got new skates. So these are the K2 Front Street, and they're pretty crazy. So I've never skated or owned a pair of K2 skates, but I've always wanted to. For whatever reason, K2 as a brand doesn't really come top of mind to me for aggressive skates. You know, you think USD, you think Razors. Very rarely does anybody bring up a pair of K2s in conversation. And I've never seen a pair of these in the wild, aside from, you know, a few YouTube channels. So I'm really excited to get them on my feet and see what they're like. So now these are a size 10.5, and what's weird about these is, first, they come flat, which is awesome. So this is 4 by 58. I think they could fit up to a 60, maybe even a 62. But what's weird is, look at the size of this frame. So it's comical how long this frame is. So typically, a size 10 skate would come with either a 250 to 270 mil frame. This thing is like 290. It's so long. It's like the size of my arm. So I don't know how this is going to perform. I can't wait to give it a shot, though. I've got some ideas in case I can't skate them super well to make them skate a little better. But let's see how it goes. All right, so these are the size 10.5, which are 28.5 centimeters. My foot's 28.5. These fit great. No issues with the fit. You know, my foot slides right in there. Not hitting my toes. I think the 45-degree strap helps suck the heel of my foot into the heel of the boot, so I'm not getting any slide. They feel really good from that bottom part. The insole. So when I was doing some deconstruction yesterday to figure out, you know, what these skates were all about, that insole is super thick. So typically, you know, insoles are like 5 millimeters or so. This thing's really thick. It's probably like 10 mil in the front, and then it goes up with like a 3-layer shock absorber in the back. Super interesting. But I can say it works, you know. First, I'm not getting that K2 forward lean. So back in the days when we were skating fatties, the K2 feel was almost like you were feeling flat. There was no lean. So if you imagine a raised heel boot, or like a pair of boots with heels, right? Shoes with heels, you know that, you know, when you're walking or when you skate, you're leaning forward a little bit. The old K2s, the fatties, they didn't have much of that at all. So it felt like you were leaning back. These don't feel any different than them 908s or the Seba that I was skating recently. So I don't think the K2 lean issue is even something to consider. I think it's great. Two noticeable issues just from the first skate. This buckle, so the cuff seems very stiff. Like I don't get any wiggle in the cuff. And as a result, the buckle, I tightened the buckle the way that I would normally tighten a buckle, like with a them or with a Seba, but I'm not able to bend. So it's like my foot is completely straight up and down. The buckle, if anything, so I loosened it. If anything, it's like a limit now to where my foot can move. Like if you, what's a good way to explain it? Like if you had something on like a pivot and you just put a stick there so it just wouldn't go any further, that's what it feels like. That's not a good feeling. You know, the cuff does not move with my foot. Maybe it will when it breaks in, but the cuff is just straight. and my foot's moving around inside, which is not a good feeling. The frames, to be honest, they don't feel that bad. They're really long, but the fact that they're flat, I can't turn as quickly as I could with like a shorter 250 frame anti-rocker, but it's not as long as I had feared. Now, I was skating the K2 R100s yesterday. Those are a 4x100 frame. They were rockered, but it is a long wheelbase, so I might still have a little bit of that muscle memory in my head right now. But they're not feeling bad. You know, I'm able to skate, I'm able to carve, I'm able to do, you know, airs and such without any weird like feelings. So I'm okay there. I was a little worried that these frames wouldn't feel okay, but they're actually not bad yet. All right, let's try some grinds. Ugh, that feels weird. Well, that was different. So I think there's a lot of things going on here. First, the frame being long just feels a little different on the approach. Turning, you know, it's hard to explain. So turning is a little more difficult. Aligning myself to the ledge is a little more difficult. The fact that the frame is so long, I saw myself clipping a couple of times, getting up on a grind, like my back wheel or my front wheel would rub on the ledge on the way up. I'm just not used to that extra length, I think. The buckle is weird. So having to leave it loose, it's not a good feeling. You know, I feel like my foot is just kind of sitting in a boot rather than my foot is an extension of the boot, if that makes sense. Like with a Seba or with the 908s, I feel like when I put my foot in there, it's like my foot just has wheels on it and, you know, a sole. The feeling I'm getting here is that I'm sliding my foot into the boot, but I'm just there. You know, it's not part of me, you know? I'm just there kind of floating around inside. And that's not a good feeling. Most important is the sole itself. So these things have a fairly big heel sole plate, but at the toe, it's like non-existent. I mean, I can see, it's like the toe of the boot is wider than the toe of the grind plate. And it's like, well, the sole plate, and it's like, well, the sole plate should be bigger than the boot, you know? Because if I miss, I'm gonna rub on the boot. Like, give me a little sole plate. This is impacting when I do soles. If I lean forward a little bit on a sole grind, you know, I try to get more on my heel when I do sole tricks. I feel like that's where most of my balance and speed comes from. But if I get on my toe, I can definitely feel just this weird, like, disconnected feeling, I think. And it's probably because the sole is thin and it also rounds off too much at the front. So I'm definitely not a fan of that. They feel fine for alley-oop tricks, but you know, I think that's kind of proving my point, like that I'm locking on mostly on my heel on an alley-oop trick, leaning forward a little bit on my toe, and that slides fine. All right, let's try some Royales. Wish me luck. Yep. Come on. There we go. Man, I'm having the hardest time royaling. I don't know what it is. So first, I had a hard time getting my boot down, and then I'm getting boot down, and then I'm getting wheel bite and popping back up, and then I finally get boot down, and I just slide out. This is not easy. I'm reminded of skating the 72 mil Aeons, the USD Aeons, and the drama that I went through to get Royales on those skates. These are very similar problem. I've heard that these are really good flat frames, so I'm accepting that as me not being able to skate them. But I skate flat fine. And I'm able to royale flat with balance frames fine. I royale fine, wish frames, juice blocks, anything, anti-rocker. So I don't know. I'm gonna keep trying, but it's a little concerning. Oh, there it is. Yeah. All right. Oh, there it goes. Got it. All right. So I think I figured it out. I'm trying to jump on like a Them 908 or a Seba or a Shift or a New Jack, you name it. These are different skates. So there's two ways to do Royales. You can go straight so that both feet are straight and you grind that way. Or there's like the old school style where instead of feet this way, you kind of turn them this way. So when you're royaling on the ledge, your feet aren't perpendicular to the ledge. They're kind of at like a 20-degree angle. That is what I'm doing. And that is working. So I'm definitely on the wheel bite protection area of the H-block. I'm in the pocket of the groove. And I'm probably grinding a little bit on the sole plate, like on the side of the foot. That's different. That's very different. Again, take it with a grain of salt. This is the way that I've found to do Royales, but the way that I know to do Royales, the way that I do Royales doesn't work with these skates. I have to adjust my Royale for these skates, which is fine. If these are your first skates and you're learning Royales, you won't notice any difference. You'll just realize that, oh, I do Royales like this. Fine, that's how I do Royales. I test a lot of skates, and I do Royales a very specific way. I can't do my Royale with these skates. So I feel like they're very different skates. All right, let's try some backside Royales because I'm a glutton for punishment. Oh, this is gonna be scary. Oh, God. I mean, they're just as confusing to me. I found that if I get on top, like I usually do with my backside Royale, I stick. I'm sure that's because I'm getting wheel bite, and that's just the way it is. If I lean off it, I can slide and I balance and probably boot down, but I'm not on the ledge. You know, I'm just kind of like I'm grinding on coping, like flat coping, where, you know, I'm coming up, I'm kissing the ledge and then I come back down. I'm not riding this ledge. I haven't rode this ledge. I feel like I'm just kind of visiting, passing by. Yeah, it's rough. They're good. They're good, but they're not the right skate for this park. I think that's the takeaway. For grinds on ledges, these are just too restrictive for me. I think it would take a lot of practice to get good on these skates with these frames at this park. Let's try some topsides. Kind grind wasn't too hard. The funny thing is, where these skates don't bend forward at the cuff, because I've loosened the buckle, there's a ton of left-right bend. So getting on topside isn't hard. Kind grind was fine, as good as I can. I mean, I'm not great at them, so. The problem really with these skates is just that sole is weird, and the Royale is weird. Which is most of my tricks. I'm gonna try. So I got some. I was very lucky that Rachel over at K2 heard that I was reviewing the skates. To be clear, I paid for these skates, so nothing paid or anything. But she heard that I was reviewing them and wanted me to check out the shorter frames. So what's interesting is the 10.5. Boot comes with these long frames that I'm skating. The 10 comes with the short frames. So half a size dictates whether I get the short frames or the long frames. I'm going to swap out these frames for the short frames, and I'll probably come back here next weekend and see if it makes any difference. The short frames are like $255, so they're probably perfect, maybe a little short for me. But I'm really curious to see what the difference is. Same wheels, same boot, just going to swap out the frames for the smaller size and see if it makes any difference. I don't think the Royale is going to change, though. I think that's my biggest concern with these skates. I don't know if it's a flat setup or the angle of the frame and the boot and the Royale groove, but that Royale was a struggle, and I love Royales, so if I have to struggle like that every time, I don't know that I can get behind them. But I'll try the smaller frames, then I'll try out some fitty balance frames with juice blocks that are the frames that I'm used to. So see if I can do it there, and then yeah, going to be skating these for about a month. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I will try to address them in a future video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Ugh, that feels weird.